Welcome to a very special combined episode of Apologetics Profile and Good Heavens. I'm Watchman Staff Apologist Daniel Ray. So glad you could join us today in celebration of the 4th of July and in celebration of 2022 being the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 16 moon landing. We are featuring 5 episodes with a very special guest, retired Air Force Brigadier General and Apollo 16 moonwalking astronaut, Charlie Duke. Charlie is the youngest of all the 12 moonwalking astronauts and the 10th man to set foot on the lunar surface. In April of 1972, with his fellow astronaut and good friend, the late John Young, who passed away in 2018, Duke landed high atop the Descartes Highlands in the lunar lander Orion. This was the highest elevation moon landing of all the Apollo missions. Charlie shares with us everything from what it was like being CAPCOM of Houston for Apollo 11, what riding a Saturn V rocket felt like, the stark, surreal beauty of the lunar surface, and how the Lord Jesus Christ transformed him and his entire family.
At that point, you're still in a critical situation. I mean,
Sure.
land and a piece of hardware breaks, or you spring a leak, in anything, and especially on the ascent stage, you got to do something. And so you were really focused in on examining the systems, made sure all the systems were go for till T1, and I think T1 was like 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
T2 like maybe 30 minutes, and I don't remember the times exactly, but I know they went from T1 to T2, T3, and at some point in there, maybe within an hour, the vehicle, we assured that the vehicle was safe, and they were staying, and so then they could start preparing the vehicle and themselves to get outside to explore.
Yeah, I reading in your book, and I didn't know this until I read your book, when you were describing your and John's descent, and by the way, my condolences to your loss of your friend. I know he passed in 2018, and you guys were more than just astronauts. You were friends. You guys loved each other. It's clear your relationship was wonderful, and so my condolences to John's passing for you. But as you're describing you and John descending, I did not know that you guys got into a hover position and then basically the module just drops, right? You don't hover down, you just fall for the last 10, 20 feet or something like that. Is that what happens?
You pick out a landing spot and hopefully you can fly over it. And then John kept his eye on where he wanted to land. So he came down vertically and at about, so I was giving him the forward velocity, lateral velocity, and rate of descent. And if I recall exactly, at 20 feet, he levels off and he's just hovering.
Yeah.
With no movement, which was really good. And then he started, I said, give me a click down and a little burning a switch. One click gave you 1 foot per second. So we started down. And 10 seconds later or whatever it was, we were coming straight down like a helicopter. And when the electrical probes hit the moon, the light came on, and I said, he was staring outside, but I see the light because my job was inside. And I said, the contact engine stopped. And so he stopped the engine and we dropped in the last 3 feet or 4. And it just boom, and it 1/6 gravity, though it wasn't
too bad.
Deal.
Pitch over. And here it is, Gator, Lone Star. I'll be the thanks, Charlie. Okay, 40 degrees, 38 degrees. Right. Helmet on dot, north ray. Okay. Looks like we're going to be able to make it, John. There's not too many blocks up there.
Ryan, you go for landing.
Right now looks pretty good.
Go. Go, Hannah. Okay, anywhere to this.
Still flat. Looking good. It was good.
Mass flow rate's going down.
There comes the shadow. Okay, down at 3, 50 feet. Down at 4. Give me one click up. You're backing up slightly. Okay, 2 down. Stand by for contact. I'm gonna let her down. You level off. Let her on down. Okay, 6%. Plenty fat. Contact. Stop.
There were no seats in the lunar module, so you were standing up, but you were you had 3 cables that anchored you to the floor, and they attached at your waist, one on each side and one at the center. You locked those cables so that if the vehicle got out of control, you wouldn't go throw you around the spacecraft. So you would maintain your position.
Got it.
And,
Got it.
That was, and I think that was important. But as you're standing there and you hit the moon, you'd sort of use your knees as a shock absorber. You just sort of squat a little bit and bounce back up. And of course, it was 6 hours late landing. We were excited. We both hollered and screamed, and little Ryan is finally here, Houston, fantastic, or something like that. I said,
Wow! Come on, man! Oh, Ryan is finally here, Houston. Fantastic!
You remember what your first words were that you said when you stepped on the lunar surface?
No, I remember John's, but I don't remember mine. It was Lunar Module pilot didn't have to have a big fancy statement. Just the commander.
Just the commander.
Yeah.
What'd John say?
He said something like, Descartes, Apollo 16 is here. We're going to change your image.
They are mysterious and unknown Descartes. Pilot planes. Apollo 16 is going to change your image.
Because you guys were going to do some geology on
A lot.
in some highlands. You were the highest elevation landing on the lunar surface, correct? Apollo 16, is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you guys collected over 200 pounds worth of lunar rocks. Is that right? You guys were 3 7-hour moonwalks in collecting rocks. Is that
well? Not quite 3. We had 2 7-hour. Two 7-hour plus. The last one was cut short.
Okay.
And we were like 5 hours and 35 minutes, something.
Did you set a record for the most amount of rocks, or was that Apollo 17?
Well, at the time it was a record. Yeah, 213 pounds or something like it. 98 kilos, around that range. And but then Apollo 17 collected more. 15 had a big load. We had a bigger load, and Apollo 17 had even a bigger load. And we got confidence with the lunar module, the performance of the engine. In fact, we had so many rocks. We had a discussion. I wouldn't call it an argument, but a discussion with Mission Control. They said, "Well, we got too many rocks here. You got to throw some back over, please. Throw some out so we get the weight back. So, right, give us that margin for liftoff."
Yeah.
And we fussed and we said, "We're not throwing any rocks out. Do that, Houston. We got plenty of gas." And so they finally relented and gave us permission to keep them. All
right. That's nice. That's nice. Well, I wanted to talk about something that's not often mentioned, and I know since you were CAPCOM, you might have a little bit more insight about this for Houston, for Apollo 11. The story is somewhat told of Buzz Aldrin at some point after the landing, requesting radio silence so that he could do a communion in the lander. Is that what do you know of that story? What can you tell us?
Not much really. We were off duty at that point.
Oh, okay.
And we were home. I'd gone home, and it was, and it wasn't. I don't remember it being well announced that he was doing this, but he did have permission to do it, and from the flight director and Big Slayton, who was the chief of flight crew operations. And so Neil honored it. I don't think he partook, but he honored it. And so Buzz, he was an elder in the Presbyterian Church at the time. And so it was his idea to do this. And he got permission from the folks to do it. And like I got permission to take a picture of my family to leave on the moon. And so everybody had a little something that they wanted to do. Apollo 15, Jim Irwin was committed Christian before he went. And he started on one of his excursions. He started quoting Psalm 121. And
wow.
I looked to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes. And they landed in a mountainous region also. There were big hills around them. It was not high elevation like we did with hills, but this was the Maury, but there were big hills around. And then on Apollo 8, there was, I think, a significant a moment when they had it was Christmas Eve, 1968, and they turned the TV and they had this TV show, if you will, and they came around from the backside of the moon, and there's Earthrise, which was really very dramatic. And then they started reading from Genesis, and they read the first 11 verses of Genesis.
Yeah.
And or so I think it was 11 verses, but anyway, they all three took turns. And except for Neil Armstrong, I think that was probably the most moving, significant words spoken from the moon.
We're now going over approaching one of our future landing sites, selected in this smooth region to call the Sea of Tranquility. Smooth in order to make it easy for the initial landing attempts, in order to preclude having to dodge mountains. Now you can see the long shadows of the lunar sunrise. We are now approaching lunar sunrise, and for all the people back on Earth, the crew of Apollo 8 has a message that we would like to send to you. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. And God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. and God saw that it was good. And from the crew of Apollo 8, we close with good night, good luck, a Merry Christmas, and God bless all of you on the good earth.
Honoring God. They were all three Christians, and I was very moved by that. I wasn't a Christian at the time, but church going,
Churchian, as you say.
Yeah, churchian, right.